Hi guys, so in this video I'm going to be going over just the basic fundamentals of Daygame, and specifically the approach in this video. So obviously the approach is critical so that you can actually meet the girl, because obviously if you don't approach you can't talk. So I would say that if you're a slightly more sort of advanced guy that's been doing Daygame for a while, you should really be approaching girls just like you see a girl, bam, you just go in. But if you're sort of a beginner, then obviously you're going to be most likely experiencing some kind of anxiety, hesitation and fear. But really you just have to kind of go past that and just kind of go for it. There's no sort of easy way out of it. You just have to just say fuck it, I'm doing it. And even if you get rejected, no matter what, nothing that bad is really going to happen. That's kind of the mentality you have to adopt. So you could get rejected a million fucking times, but ultimately no one really cares. She's not going to care, no one's going to care, so you shouldn't really care either. Nothing bad's going to happen, she's not going to bite your head off. Just go for it. You've got literally nothing to lose and potentially a lot to gain, so just go for it. That's the mentality you need to have. But yeah, so when it comes to the actual approach itself, most likely the girl is going to be either standing still or sitting down, or she's going to be walking. So in those three different scenarios, you're going to most likely have to change your method of approach depending on the circumstances. If she's walking, what you're going to want to do is do what's known as the front stop approach. So basically she's walking along, you need to kind of jump in front of her and then get her to stop. If she doesn't stop when she's walking, she just kind of says yeah, she acknowledges you, and then she just keeps on walking. You can sort of walk side by side with her, but that's definitely not ideal. You really want her to stop, because if she stops, then she's going to get way more invested in the conversation, and most likely your interaction is going to be a lot higher quality. And if you do get her number, more likely she's going to actually follow through on it rather than flake. So bear that in mind. I'm going to make a subsequent video later on about how to really nail the front approach, because that's really important. Because if you're restricting yourself in a way that you don't stop girls who are walking, then you're missing out on a lot. So that's really important. But yeah, if she's not walking, then she's either going to be stationary, so she's either going to be sitting down or standing. But if she's standing, then most likely that means she's going to be probably waiting for someone. So that obviously means that you've got a limited amount of time to do the interaction. Bear in mind that her friend might come along, or her boyfriend potentially might come along in the middle of the interaction. And in both those scenarios, obviously don't panic. If it's the friend, that's obviously a lot better than if the boyfriend comes along. But if the boyfriend comes along, obviously the key thing to remember is don't shit yourself. Just say to the boyfriend, I didn't know she had a boyfriend. Well done, congrats, or something along those lines, and that's it really. You don't have to squirm or run away or whatever. It's highly unlikely that the boyfriend's going to be pissed at you for it, and if he is, then fuck him, who cares. If the friend comes along, then it's you kind of just want to acknowledge the friend. What I like to do is just say something like, oh hi friend, your friend over here was hitting on me. So it's like flipping the script kind of. If she's stationary but sitting down, then the approach should be a little bit more subtle. If perhaps she's at a cafe or something, she's just there sitting, then best thing to do is just sit down with her and just acknowledge the fact that, hey, I know whatever you're doing. If she's in a cafe, on her laptop or something, I know you're studying. Just to acknowledge that at the beginning, and say but, and then do the initial opener. I thought you looked good or whatever. So after you've approached, you want to go in for the initial opener. So there's two ways of doing it. You can do either indirect or direct. I always, 99% of the time, I always advocate for doing it directly, especially if it's like on the street or in a sort of a public area with lots of different people. I would only ever recommend, I'd pretty much never really recommend doing indirectly. Much better just to go indirect, because that way you're not bullshitting her. She knows right from the start what's going on, and it's a lot more honest that way, and she should respect you a lot more for that. If you were doing it indirectly, then it would be something along the lines of, hey, do you have directions for so and so, and then you would then throw in say a compliment after she gives you the directions, and then go from there. Whereas directly, you're stopping her and you're saying, hey, I had to stop you because you looked good, something along those lines. And yeah, it's just a lot more honest that way, and it's more likely to get a better interaction that way as well. So after you've done the initial compliment, you then need to obviously develop a conversation from that point. So this is where kind of the real sort of meat of the conversation will start, because you obviously have to create a conversation out of nothing almost. So one of the easiest ways to do that is just to you see something about the girl and then you throw an assumption at her. This is typically known as stacking. So it's basically, perhaps she's wearing a certain item of clothing, or perhaps she's got an accent, or perhaps she's in the middle of a certain activity. So then you can comment on that and then just kind of throw that assumption at her. So it'd be something along the lines of, hey, what I noticed about you was, and then you then sort of start riffing off of that. This is a sort of a proven method in the sort of the London Daygame model. That's definitely effective, and it can be applicable all over the world. So it's not just a London thing. A typical cliched sort of example would be, she's got blonde hair, therefore, you must be Scandinavian or something. And she's like, oh no, I'm actually American. And then from that point, you would then start throwing assumptions or stereotypes about American, or about American girls. For example, you could have said, where are you from, right at the start. But the problem with that is that it's kind of just, it's just kind of a boring sort of question, and there's no sort of fun, flirty vibe to it at all, really. You can start off like that and then do the flirty, fun stuff afterwards, but just throwing the assumptions at her at the beginning is just one way of doing it, which helps set that tone right from the beginning. So that's just something to bear in mind. Ideally, what you want to do is have a particular topic that you're talking about. So for example, the American girls, American stereotypes, for example, that could be sort of a first topic if the girl was American, for example. And then sort of go with that topic of conversation until it kind of runs dry, rather than just kind of asking a bunch of questions where the girl's just answering, but there's no real sort of investment or actual proper conversation. Because if you think about a good conversation, even just between friends, it's going to be something which both of you actually give a shit about, and you're not going to just be switching topic constantly. You're going to be talking about a particular topic until it kind of runs dry properly, and then when it does run dry, you then kind of perhaps ask her a question like, what brings you to London, for example, and then repeat the process again in terms of having that playful, flirty vibe. The key thing to remember, obviously, is that you don't have to stick rigidly to any formula. You can freestyle it as and when. There's no right or wrong when it comes to this sort of stuff. But the key thing really is that the girl needs to be invested, and you really do want to kind of keep the conversation fun and flirty, and you want to do a bit of teasing and challenging with the girl. So you don't want to just be agreeing to her to everything she says, or she says one thing, then you just nod, yes, that's cool. You want to kind of challenge her in a way, tease her, take the piss a bit, act a bit like a clown in a way almost. And she says one thing, you kind of disagree, or in a fun way, not like in a serious no you're wrong kind of way, but in a way that's kind of like offering a different perspective that's almost a bit silly. So an example of that perhaps is I'm just going to do some shopping, and she has maybe she's carrying like 10 bags on her, and then you could say, I think you've done enough shopping already. Even something as simple as that is a way of kind of challenging her and teasing her a bit. You say something like, you're already a shopaholic, surely you need to do less shopping, not more. Just something simple like that. So a good conversation is one where you're doing this teasing and challenging, and then there's this kind of playful vibe, but you also want to do a bit of just normal chit chat. So you might talk a bit about where she's from, what her background is, what she does, what she's doing, in terms of her activities or whatever. So talk a bit about that in a kind of non-sexual way, just to build, that rapport side of things. You want to balance the rapport side of things with the kind of the sexual escalation side of things. So yeah, that's also quite important as well, to develop a bit of tension, sexual tension throughout the conversation. Just so that way she knows that you're actually hitting on her, and that that further along down the line there's no kind of threat of getting friend zone. So you're establishing yourself as you're a guy talking to a girl, and that you're obviously down to fuck basically, without obviously expressing it so explicitly. And then towards the end of the conversation, you need to obviously close for the number. I'd say a good conversation is typically about 3, 4, 5 minutes, something around that sort of time. And then when it comes to actually getting the number, you don't want to really say, "Oh, can I get your number?" You want to really say something like, "Let's exchange numbers and let's meet up at so and so time." So it could be in a few days' time, or when you're both free for a coffee or something like that. So yeah, and that when instead of obviously asking for the number, just saying let's get your number. It's a lot more dominant, and it's a lot better that way. Once you've got her number, that's obviously great. What you can do is you then want to obviously contact her, because obviously you can't fuck a phone number, and a phone number can mean absolutely fuck all if she doesn't respond to your text or whatever. So yeah, so obviously you want to contact her. You can do it I say anywhere from from half an hour after the interaction to 24 hours, depending. A lot really depends on your own circumstances, how much free time you've got, as well as the girl, and actually what you want from it. So are you here just to kind of get laid, or are you here because you're actually looking for a girlfriend? I say it's quite important to make that distinction, because if you're just looking to get laid, then that kind of changes it, in terms of you're not really needing to get to know the girl on a sort of personal level that much. You're more into the kind of the fast escalation side of things. Whereas if you're looking for a girlfriend, I would say it's really, really important to actually get to know the girl, go on dates, potentially multiple dates. Whereas if you're just looking for sex, you can just go, escalate really hard right from the beginning, go for one date, try and pull her back to your place. And remember, it's not just about getting phone numbers, because actually getting phone numbers sometimes is the easy part. It's actually following up from that can sometimes be a lot more challenging, because if she doesn't respond to your phone number or your text, then what was the point? Then it's a flake. It means nothing. So remember, the better the interaction you have initially with the girl when you stop her, the more likely she's not going to flake, and the more likely she's going to want to meet up with you later on. So that's really important to bear in mind. I'm going to be making different videos later on down the line about the various aspects of the day game approach, as well as all the stuff that happens afterwards, like the texting, the date side of things, etc. All of that stuff, that's also really, really important as well. Cheers for watching. If you'd be interested in one-to-one coaching with me, where we'll go out in public and work on you approaching girls, or more generally with your social confidence, please visit my website ed-game.com.
Yo, I freestyle film scores, keep alive like the film on. You hear my rhythm, find it hard not to feel wrong. In case you didn't get with it, I've been it in a minute in case you forget it. Yo, peep this verse is an exhibit, my limit is